Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is a little impromptu. I originally had a completely different video planned for today. I, however, realized that I wanted to do a mid-year check-in. And I'm still planning on doing the other video I wanted to do that was originally on the books to be filmed today, and that is my late spring, early summer favorites. I wanted to do an all practice edition, so this will be makeup, it'll be nail polish, decks, candles, all my favorite things basically. But I really wanted to get this video out first. I'm very excited about the idea. So I originally came up with the idea actually through being inspired by other people's mid-year check-ins. Like a lot of them came out last month, I noticed. And I believe this is an older take. It was created by Chanel Days here on YouTube. I, however, realized that all those videos, at least the ones that I saw, they were very tarot and oracle deck focused. And there will be a component of tarot and oracle in this video. There will be like an aspect of it. I, however, wanted to focus more on practice, spiritual practice. So I did go ahead and I created some journal prompts. I have 7 here and I'm going to quickly read them out to you. Journal prompt number 1 is, how has my spiritual practice evolved since January? What daily rituals and practices have I been consistent with for the past 6 months? Since January, when did I feel most connected to my spiritual practice and when did I feel the most disconnected? When it comes to my spiritual practice, what has worked out the most for me and what has not worked out over the past half year? What rituals and practices do I find to be the most fulfilling and nourishing so far this year? In the last 6 months, which tarot and oracle decks have had the most impact on my spiritual practice? And the last one are there any rituals or practices that I feel bored of in my spiritual practice? If so, how can I reignite my passion for them or finally say goodbye? So I will also list them in the description box below just for your ease. And I am going to start off by discussing how my spiritual practice has evolved. In my opinion, I realized that where my spiritual practice really evolved is I no longer really force things. There were times where I would try to force certain practices, certain daily rituals. I realized that over time, over the course of my spiritual practice, especially the past 6 months, just being aware of my personal energetic cycles has been really fulfilling and valuable for me. I understand that there are certain parts of my cycle where I will just say I'll have significantly less energy. So a daily ritual or practice, even weekly, it's sometimes not feasible for me. And it was a huge breakthrough for me to just stop having that expectation on myself that I have to have a daily practice or I have to have a daily ritual or I have to have a weekly ritual. I recently shared my weekly practice, and there are some weeks where I'm too tired to engage in my weekly practice. There are days where I can't pull cards as well. I either just don't have the time and I'm in a hurry in the morning to get my daughter to school and myself to work, and I'll pull cards later that day, or I'll just skip it and do it the next day. So, and I've just accepted this as a part of where I am in my life. This is just where I'm at in my season of life, and that was a huge breakthrough for me, and it's part of the evolution of my spiritual practice. The biggest evolution, though, in my opinion, is that over the past 6 months, I realized that I don't see a difference between magic and daily life activities, even the more mundane, more boring tasks. I realized that magic is no longer just about what I do in front of my altar anymore. I've come to understand that everything is magic. It's all magic. For example, water magic, it's as much a part of just feeling water on my hands or on my body as it is playing in the pool or at the splash pad with my daughter, as much as it is helping her navigate her intense emotions or even just exploring the depth of my own emotions. So I've come to really see no difference. Like, magic it's not just exclusive to what you do in front of the altar. It's not the spells that you cast, or it's not really about the rituals as well. Everything can be magic. You can engage in magic everywhere you go. It really depends on how you look at it. And this is a huge evolution of mine that I've had over the past 6 months. So, daily rituals and practices that I've been pretty consistent with over the past 6 months. Again, I really enjoy candles, scent. Candles are a huge part of my daily practice. I think it's a huge part of a lot of different people's practices. My sister as well is a big candle person, so it's definitely not new to me. I kind of grew up in a household. My mom even really enjoyed candles and lighting a candle, starting her day lighting a specific candle. I like to do it to inspire certain moods if I'm trying to feel more creative, or maybe I want to feel more sexy or confident that day. I like to use scent that way. It sort of sets the mood, or it sets the tone of my day, and I try and match it with whatever's going on energetically. And we'll go more into the candles when I do my favorites video, because I do have quite a few. I'm a little bit feeling a bit passionate about candles. There was a period of time, actually more recently, where I was suffering with really bad allergies. I had to discontinue my candles practice, my fire magic, however you look at that. I had to discontinue that practice for a period of time, and it was quite difficult for me, so I'm very happy to get back into that again. But I really do enjoy my candles. I also enjoy glamour magic. I particularly like the use of color. I like eyeshadow for that, but I will also use shirts or pants as well, like clothing and jewelry as well, to match whatever intention, like any specific intentions that I have for that day. I like to stay connected to my own personal cycles, my own personal experiences energetically, as well as just what's going on with my body. I like to keep track of all that. I track my period. I've been doing that for pretty consistently for the past couple of years, but I would say really for the past 6 months, I started journaling. I used to have an app, but I'd say the past 6 months I've been journaling, keeping track of my menstrual cycle. Another practice that I really am enjoying is connecting with different seasonal energies. So right now I'm feeling very connected to the water element. Of course, it doesn't have to be summer to connect with the water element. I'm just really enjoying it's just so much more accessible when it's summer. It's easy for me to connect to the water element. I can just walk over to the splash pad with my daughter, or playing at the pool, the beach. So I really do enjoy those types of seasonal practices. I like to kind of connect with the season through different activities. And that's something that I really do enjoy. As I'm sure a lot of you too, right? So I feel most connected to my spiritual practice when I'm paying more attention to my self-care. I tend to feel more disconnected, or like particularly to my own intuition. There are times where I feel like I can't connect with my intuition, or I'm struggling to understand my intuition, although the voice is always there. I'm sure like you guys understand what I'm talking about, but I do go through periods, particularly if I'm going through major transitions in my life where there's a significant amount of change. I'll struggle with feeling a connection to my spiritual practice. Typically, it's during times where I can't engage in some of my daily practices that I'm quite comfortable in. I had that recently, for example, when I had to discontinue the candle practice that I've had for a very long time at this point. And there have been other times as well. Recently I'm not feeling as passionate about my glamour magic or wearing that bright, vivid red that I'm sure you see me in so many videos with bright, vivid red. Or I've been wearing a lot of grungy tones apart from today's video. But for the most part, Monday to Friday or throughout the week, I'll wear a lot of browns, more grungy kind of swamp colors. I'm not feeling as inspired by color as I usually am. So I forgot to mention that another reason why I'm not feeling as drawn to color in my color magic practice, in the use of color, especially eyeshadow, is because I've also been spending a lot of time out in the sun, like at the park, at the splash pad, and the pool with Amelia. So I'm not doing a lot of color on my eyes. Like most days I'm just throwing a little mascara on and I'm calling it a day. Especially we've had a lot of heat waves here. It's very hot, so I don't bother on those days if I know I'm going to be out for like outside in the heat, in the sun, for large periods of time. And I've also been drawn to a lot of blacks, grays, grungy browns, or greens, like grunge tones as well. So not feeling particularly drawn to color, at least not at this particular moment, due to just what I'm drawn to, what attracts my eye, as well as just lifestyle right now, being out, enjoying the summer heat and summer activities with Amelia. So number 4 again kind of goes into number 1 again, where I already sort of went over how something that really didn't work for my spiritual practice was being very strict. I like to give myself certain timelines. Like I'm sure you guys are well aware at this point, I'm very structured. I'm very routine. I'm very structured. It's a huge part of who I am. I tend to do the same things. I eat the same things. I get up around the same time every single day. I've always been like this for the most part. It's how I thrive. It's what makes me successful in life for the most part. So it's just something that I tend to stick with. I am a Capricorn Mars as well, and a moon in Virgo. So I do find like we tend to be very structured. So I realized that what wasn't really working in my spiritual practice was when I would be so rigid or strict about having certain practices and not being flexible with them, especially during life changes. If I was feeling sick, it just wasn't feasible for me to have a daily practice on some days. Some days I barely have any time in the morning. Something will happen unexpected. For example, my daughter will wet the bed and I'll have to put her bed sheets in the washer and dryer. So that takes a huge chunk of time that I would usually have to spend doing something else. So there's sometimes unexpected things pop up and I don't have as much time. So I've realized that it's not very helpful for me to be so rigid with my practices and rituals. Another way I also kind of like to work around that is I've been pulling my cards first thing in the morning when I'm brewing my coffee. And I find that is effective. It's helpful. I do sometimes forget in the morning though, and I'll come back to it after. But Again, I'm just trying not to be so rigid with it, to allow a little bit more flexibility. So some of the practices that really nourish me, I've realized exercise is a huge thing for me. It's really how I can release stress and tension. I tend to carry it in my body, particularly my back, so I'll get really sore. So it's just a way for me to move my body and release stress. My glamour and skincare rituals, I absolutely love them. I used to really enjoy picking out my eyeshadow palettes and matching colors and being experimental with it, but I've actually come to really enjoy my skincare routine, like the removal of the makeup at the end of the day, the cleansing, and putting on my different oils. I've actually really come to enjoy that as well. And just spending time out in nature, spending time with my daughter and my husband. My husband doesn't do well outside around this time of the year because he has really bad allergies, but I really enjoy connecting with my daughter out in nature and introducing her to the different various plants and animals and trees and stuff. So I do really enjoy that. As well as I enjoy working with different herbs and trees. I've mentioned this on the channel. I've had experiences with different plant spirits. They come forward as guides for me, and that's a practice that I really truly enjoy. I've had experiences with birch trees, maple trees. I've had experiences with ivy, and recently mushrooms. So that's another very fulfilling practice of mine. Okay, so now we're going to get into the tarot and oracle portion of this video. I'm just turning to the appropriate page in the journal about this. So these are the tarot and oracle decks that I felt really had an impact on my spiritual practice. They either inspired rituals or practices that have become fundamental or really enjoyable practices that are part of my spiritual path. So if you're an old school follower of mine, you know that my practice with Hecate, it began with a deck called the Botanical Oracle. It is an independently produced oracle deck. You can find it on Etsy. I've spoken a lot about it on the channel. But over the past 6 months, I have really grown to enjoy and respect the Oracle of the Hekatean path. And it's become such a crucial, important, it plays such an important role in my relationship with Hecate, in my craft with her. So this deck, I've spoken about it on the channel as well. I feel Hecate come through very strongly with this deck. I get very clear messages about her. And it's nice to have a deck specifically crafted with the goddess in mind. But I have really come to appreciate this deck in my collection. And this is a deck that I sat on purchasing the deck. I wasn't too sure if it was the right purchase for me. I had already dedicated a significant amount of time to the Botanical Oracle, but I'm happy that I purchased this deck. There's nothing quite like it in my collection. And I'm happy to advise that this deck is now the deck that I turn to. It's the deck that I turn to whenever I want to speak with Hecate. If I want to get an understanding of what we're looking at, what themes we're dealing with in the upcoming week, I will pull out this deck, or any craft related work or activity she wants me to do, I will use this deck. Next, I have the Lantern Oracle. Sorry, I have it up high on one of my shelves here. This deck came through for a Hecate workshop I did. It was a mini workshop, I think a couple of months back. And this deck really shined in that role. This is the shadow work deck for me. I won't turn to really any other shadow work decks. And where I think this deck really shines is the guidebook is really incredible. I find it's very good at helping target certain emotions that you're experiencing that you might be avoiding. I like to journal and create my own journal prompts off of what really resonates in the guidebook. But my spiritual practice would not be the same without this deck in the past 6 months. It's really come through. Previously, I didn't really feel incredibly connected to this deck. And like, it is a very specific tool. It's one that I would only use with shadow work. Oh my God, what is going on with my throat? This is a very specific tool. It's not a deck that you're not gonna turn to this deck to do any other work apart from shadow work. But it's very good at what it does. So again, this is the Lantern Oracle. This is a Blue Angel deck. That's another thing. I really love my Blue Angel decks. I've noticed that. Next up, I have the Linestrider Tarot. This is a recent deck of mine. I recently developed a strong connection with this deck. I realized that this deck, at least to me, it represents my inner child. And I've explained that in depth on the channel. I will link that video down below. I did a Empowering the Inner Child themed video on the channel recently. And in that video, I explained why I made the connection that this deck represents my inner child. In a nutshell, I think watercolor imagery is just so perfect for representing the inner child or even just a childlike energy. Due to the softness, I find a lot of watercolor, it does tend to be soft. It tends to be usually bold, vivid colors. Even in the darker image, even in the darker representations of watercolor that you can find, there's still a softness, I think, because of the water. That I think really helps it to connect with the energy of a child. It has that childlike softness and innocence to it. With this deck particularly too, the animal imagery, the watercolor, and the different figures. There's even some more ancient Greek kind of looking figures as well, at least in my opinion. It takes me to another world or realm, and it reminds me of my inner child because of that as well. So I'm a Pisces, and my inner child, due to some childhood trauma, my inner child was like your very stereotypical water sign child or Piscean, like Piscean escapism kind of child, where due to some situations that I was experiencing in my environment, I would escape reality using my imagination, which is not uncommon for water signs, especially water sign children. We have very active, vivid imaginations, and my my childhood was definitely not shy of that. And that deck also kind of connects me to that as well. This deck really connects me to that. So the Linestrider Tarot, again, it really had a very important impact on my spiritual practice over the past 6 months, or within the past 6 months, I should say. This was more of a recent development. So for the longest time, the Botanical Oracle, I have to mention that again. That was my Hekatean practice deck that has now evolved to my Oracle of the Hekatean Path. And then it also included that plant spirit magic or craft or plant spirit practice that I mentioned I touched briefly on as well in this video already. That practice has now evolved to include the use of the Viola Lux Umbra. I just don't remember where I put that deck. So the Viola Lux Umbra is my plant spirit witchcraft deck now. But this deck also really connects me to cycles of life and rebirth. It has a cyclical energy to it. As much as this deck is similar to the Witch Sister Tarot in the sense that energetically it feels very vivacious, full of life, it has a lust for life to me energetically, but there's also a practicality to this deck. There's a grounding aspect to this deck. If I would assign it an astrological sign, I would give it my moon sign, Virgo. I would say that this is a Virgo. This deck is incredible at what it does. It helps me connect to different spirits of plants, particularly flowers. And the artwork is so beautiful. I love the antique staining on each card. There's a fragility to this deck, to the imagery. It's very beautiful. Why is that upside down? It's very beautiful. This deck is quickly becoming one of my favorites in my entire collection, I think, honestly. So again, this is the Viola Lux Umbra, and this is my Plant Spirit Witchcraft deck, or Plant Spirit Magic deck. Next up is a huge one for me. This is my Femme Fatale Tarot. This is my personal deck. I created this using Make Playing cards and film noir imagery. This deck is my empowerment. This is my Femme Fatale, my empowerment deck. This is the deck I turn to for particularly difficult periods in my life. If I'm really struggling with a situation, I will turn to this deck to see where I'm actually empowered. And she has the archetype of the Femme Fatale in her. I specifically created her. I crafted her to have that spirit within her. And the Femme Fatale archetype is one that I hold really close, as well as the Witch archetype. Those two are they're my two favorite archetypes. I go back and forth between the two. But this deck is quickly also becoming one of my favorite decks. Of course, this is one that I crafted. It's a very personal deck for that reason. But this is my recognizing and sitting in my power deck. This is my empowerment deck for all of my empowerment practices. And I've shared recently on the channel, that's a huge part of the work that I do with my tarot and oracle decks, is to be more empowered, to make more empowered decisions, recognizing where I'm actually powerful in a situation. It helps me in my responses. It helps me to avoid surrendering when I don't have to. So I have such a great appreciation for this deck, and I'm happy that this deck came to fruition when it did, because I do think that it's a deck and it's a practice that I really do need in my spiritual work. So the last deck, which I'm sure is not going to surprise you, this is the Witch Sister Tarot. This deck, I believe, came out in December. So I think I've only had it for 6-7 months. And this deck quickly became my favorite deck. This deck inspired my glamour magic practice. It inspired the very beginning of my empowerment practice and a little bit of my plant spirit practice as well. So this deck really started it all. This deck really connects me also to my Scottish roots. My mother her background's Scottish, and my dad is Portuguese. So as I've shared on the channel, due to my father, he struggles with a lot of personal demons, which I don't like to use. I don't like to use that word. He struggles with a lot of personal issues. So we weren't allowed around my mother's side of the family due to their personal feelings towards him. So this deck, it helped me connect with my Scottish roots that, you know, for the longest time I felt a void. I didn't really feel a very strong connection to that aspect of myself or that side of myself, as I wasn't really around it a lot. I wasn't really allowed to until much later in my life did I really get to know my Scottish grandmother, my mother's mom. And I'm so blessed, like I'm very, very happy that I got to meet her. It was more towards the end of her life. But this deck, it reminds me of her, and it reminds me of that aspect of myself. It connects me to those roots. As well as the land. I've mentioned this on the channel before as well. I'm in this weird kind of, I call it a liminal space here. It's not quite, it's like a small town, but not. There's a lot of farmland out here. Like the land here is incredibly alive. The wildlife, the insects. I've seen insects here that I've never seen in my life. I'm from a much larger, not a city, but like it's a much larger town than where I currently am. And like I saw black slugs here. I'm seeing just a lot more different animals and insects. There's a lot of vultures out here. There's hawks. I don't tend to see owls often because I'm not out late at night because I have a 3-year-old, but there's a lot of different birds of prey out here. I've seen herons. There's just, the wildlife is just so insane. It's very magical out here. And this deck also, it connects me to the aspect, like to the land where I live and the different spirits and the different animals out here as well. As well as color magic. It's been a long time, but this deck really got me interested in color and using it in my spiritual practice to set intentions, which is going into the next question. It's something I want to get back into. Really working with color to set intentions again. And this question, the last question, are there any rituals or practices that I feel bored of in my spiritual practice? If so, can I reignite my passion for them or finally say goodbye? So I'd like to reconnect with color again, and I think really using it to set intentions, connecting with color again in that way. I think it would be really beneficial to my spiritual practice, and it would help me connect with that practice again as well. So this is kind of it's a different kind of video. I hope you guys are into it. But I did really want to talk about my spiritual practice, and I hope more of you also do the same. I love watching videos about other people's spiritual practices. As much as I love decks, card work is a huge part of my spiritual practice. It's not the only thing that I practice. So I love these types of videos where you kind of see the whole picture. You're not just seeing like an aspect of it. Anyway, I can ramble on forever, but thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.